Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this live stream. My name is Hassam Hassan, and I am the program manager for the Microsoft Reactor in the Middle East and Africa. And at the Reactors, we are hubs globally for the founders and developers to come learn all what's new in technology and what's happening in tech, open source communities, etc. From our cloud advocates, Microsoft employees, experts, also from the MVP community, our tech communities from around the world. And on today's session, this is a kickoff for an exciting series, and we are having pleasure to have David Abu, our cloud advocate from Africa, joining us here to tell us more about this new series.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for bringing me in. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is David Abu. I'm a cloud advocate for Power BI globally. I help people learn more on Power BI and also improve the knowledge gaps between people who are learning Power BI, who wants to get into an advanced level of Power BI. And I also speak at community events and make sure that people understand the new features, new things coming up in Power BI. Thank you, Sam.
Awesome. So again, this is a kickoff for a series, and to maximize your learning, there will be lots of things for you to do during the sessions. After the sessions, the videos are recorded. We're streaming directly to the Reactor YouTube channel, and this content is available right after we finish the stream. Same link, you just go back to the channel and you can view it, replay it as much as you want. Keep the questions in the chat friendly and around today's topic. And we are always looking for your questions and for your feedback. And I've already asked a question about where you are joining us from. On today's session, this is the first kickoff. David, tell us more about what's happening today.
Okay, so majorly about the whole series is we go in an advanced level to talk about scalability. Because one thing is that knowing how to run Power BI reports on your Power BI desktop is very good. But when you need to scale, how do you scale? And that is why we want to talk more about the Microsoft ecosystem working together with Power BI to build scalable project or scalable report. So how do we do that? And today, the first series that we'll be having in the Power BI everywhere is we're talking about the Power BI and the SQL Server. And we are bringing one of the best cloud advocates globally to help us talk about that. So I'll be bringing up on stage Christopher Manuel, my friend and my colleague, to talk more on the Power BI and SQL Server. Hi, Christopher.
Hi, David. Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
I'm good. How is France?
France is good.
Okay, good. So over to you. Power BI and SQL Server. What do you think about it when I sent you this topic?
I would say that's probably one of the most used database with Power BI. But if you're just using SQL Server, you may miss out some features. So today, if you're just getting started with Power BI, please stay because we will start from the beginning, how to connect your Power BI desktop to SQL Server database, and then we will go exploring more options around how do you do it, but without impacting the performance of a production database, for example, or how do you do it at scale with Azure Synapse. So we'll start slow and small, and then we'll see some techniques to ramp up to biggest database you can find with Azure SQL.
Cool. So the floor is yours. Let us drive in.
Thank you, David. So welcome to this session. As we said, we'll talk about Power BI and SQL Server. My name is Christopher Mano. You can find me on social network at cmano. And I will give you at the end of the presentation all the links. So everything I show you today, including the slides, but also the demo, will be available after the session. And for the demo code, you will need to wait a little bit, like tomorrow or Wednesday, to get access to all my Power BI reports, all my database schema, etc. So you can redo these demos at your own pace at home. So let's get started with the agenda. We will start by exploring different ways to connect Power BI Desktop to SQL Server and Azure SQL. Then we will start by doing some quick analysis on our data. When you're, for example, a data analyst and you get tasked to create new reports, but you don't know already the database data source, you will probably need a bit of time to understand what data is available and the quality of that data, so you can better create interesting reports. So we will see a few interesting features within Power BI to help you discover the data sets available to you and to get started creating your own reports. And last but not least, we'll see how you can scale your analytics needs when you're using production databases. And I will explain a little bit later what is a production database and what is different from other kind of databases you may use with Power BI. So let's get started with the first section, different ways to connect to SQL Server and Azure SQL from Power BI. And I will stop the slide right away and start doing some demo. So here on my computer, I have a few different things that I've already set up before today's show. The first one is I got Power BI Desktop installed. You can get it right from the Microsoft Store, and it's free. People tend to forget that Power BI Desktop is free, but it is. So it's a great way to get started. The other thing I've installed is a SQL Server instance right on my desktop. And for that, I've used Docker image. So I'm using Docker Desktop, and I've just created a new container using the latest SQL Server 2022 image. If you don't know what Docker is, don't worry. You can use any on-premises SQL Server, or you can use a traditional SQL Server installation to do that as well. And the other thing I've created is I've created a sample database called SQL Threads, which is a database supporting an e-commerce website about beanies, scarf, everything you can make out of wool. So as you can see in the schema, I have some orders, customers, products, something that is very, very basic in terms of data. So let's get started. I've just created a new report, and then I can get here and click on Get Data. I will have a new window opening in a few seconds, but list a ton of different ways to get data into Power BI. Obviously, Power BI is not made only for SQL Server, and you can use a lot of different data sources, including classic relational databases like SQL Server, but also MySQL, PostgreSQL, and other ones. You can use traditional data warehouse technologies like, again, SQL Server Data Warehouse, but also things like Teradata. But you can also go beyond that, and you can access data from a bunch of different SaaS services, including Google Analytics, Salesforce, etc., or other tools within the Power Platform, or Azure. And I invite you to watch the other episodes in this series where you will learn how to get data from different data sources, including JSON file in the data lake with Power BI. But for today, we're focused on SQL Server. So let's get started with SQL Server. I will just pick up SQL Server database here, click on Connect. It will ask me the server address. Here I'm on localhost, and I have the SQL Trades database. I will click OK, and if you are doing this at home, you will have another step. I will show you it in a minute, asking for your credentials. Because on that computer, I've already got access to that specific server, my credentials have been stored, and then I don't have to log in again. So here I get access to all the tables I have in that database, and I can click which ones I want to load into my model. So I just click on load, I wait for a few minutes, and all the data from this database will be loaded onto Power BI, and then I will be able to start working on that data. Very simple, so let's switch to a report I made earlier. And if I go here on the model view, you can see that I've imported all the production databases tables. So I mentioned production databases for a bit now. What I'm saying here is that database, it's the one that powers the website, the e-commerce website. So it's when you create a new order, the website, whatever the technology you're using, is actually storing a new line of, in that case, few new lines in different tables in that data. So you're querying the same database that powers the transaction workload, the online transaction workload, which is the e-commerce. That's not something we do every day, and I will give you more hints about other architecture we found a little bit later in that presentation. But for now, I have the exact same model within Power BI. That's the one I have in my online database. And I created a bunch of different reports very easily. And one of the cool things we can do within Power BI is we can process the data. So we can not only import the data, but for example, if I'm going here on customers, you will be able to see a map of the different countries where we shipped some information. We don't actually have within the database a column with the country. But what we have, if I click on orders, is we have a shipping address, which is a complete shipping address. So as you can see here, within my shipping address, I have the address, the street number, the city, and the country, which could be complicated / we don't need that to actually beat that map. What I've created is a new column, which is actually a new measure, shipping country, where I only have the shipping country based on the shipping address. So that new column is actually not in my database. It's only on my analytical model within Power BI. And I wrote a bit of DAX. DAX is that language that looks like something you wrote in Excel, but actually help me create new measures, new things that are calculated on the Power BI side of things. So if you're new to Power BI, that's a few of the things you will have to do when you create your model within Power BI. So here I've just connected to my production database, which is a local database, a SQL Server on-premise database. But what if I want to do something else, which is, and I'm sorry, my cursor got a little bit fuzzy. So let me try to kill something. Yeah, got it. What about connecting to another type of SQL database, which is Azure SQL? So SQL Server is a service you install on your own servers within your own data center or your own computers. If you want to use the cloud within the Microsoft Cloud Azure, we have an Azure SQL offering where basically we take care of everything for your database. You just create a new database and we host it for you. We are doing the backups. We are doing all the hardware provisioning for you. So how do you connect to such database? Well, it's quite easy. Let me get the address of one of my servers. I think we can get that one. And here, you can go and get data, SQL Server, exact same thing that before. Instead of localhost, I will paste the name of the SQL Server that's being given by the Azure Portal, and I click on OK. And here you have a new screen you haven't seen before, which is the credential screens. So how do you connect to an Azure SQL database? Well, you can use different ways for connecting. The first one is using a Microsoft account. So it's an Azure AD account. Or you can use a SQL login. So something you configure, an identity you configure at the SQL level. That's what I've done here. I have a demo essay and I have a small password. And I click on connect. And within a few seconds, I've already opened the firewall on this Azure SQL database. And then I can explore again the database and get access to the same tables you've seen before: customers, orders, products, etc. So what I've done to show you something is I've basically went to this report. I've copy-pasted and I've created a new one called Azure, where I connect to my Azure database. You don't need to do that, but for the example, during this session, I will switch between that Azure backend Power BI report and the main dashboard, which is local. Within my local database, as you can see, I have just a bunch of customers, not so many compared to what I have in the Azure one, where I get a little bit much more customers and way much more orders in my Azure SQL database. And the fact is, when I click on here and get data, I've done something without explaining, which is using the default import options. This option, this data connectivity mode, directs how Power BI is connecting and when Power BI is getting the data it needs to display the report. By doing import, what you will do is each time you will refresh the reports, Power BI will actually gather the entire tables you've selected by default, which obviously it's not something we want to do on huge databases. We will see later on how you can get around that. So we just use Power BI to connect to both a local database and an Azure database. But that's interesting when you're using Power BI locally. If you're using PowerBI.com, the Power BI service, you may hit a small hiccup, which is your local database, your SQL Server database, is not hosted on Azure. But if you're using the Power BI service, you can use something called the on-premises data gateway, which is a small service you can install on one of your servers that brings up the local data to the Power BI service. So when you are using Power BI to share reports among coworkers, you are using the Power BI service. And when you do, you need to build reports that use local databases, then you can use the on-premises data gateway. Another thing to close up that section about modeling. As I have explained here, we are using a production database, and the model I've created is really a demo quality model. It's not something I want to see in production, because the way you are modeling the data for production database, it's way different than the model you want to deploy, you want to create to do some analysis on top of the same data. That's why when you're creating a Power BI report, most of the time, you will not just reuse the table as is from your production database. You will create another model, that you can do either in a data warehouse, like again, you can do it with SQL Server or Azure SQL, or Azure Synapse. I will give you a quick intro of Azure Synapse later on, or another data warehouse. So what you see here in the previous demo and in the following demo in terms of Power BI schema, Power BI models, is not something you should do in a real world project. It's just really for demo purposes. So now I've connected to my SQL database. I don't know what's inside. I haven't got to look at the data yet. So let's do it. Let's look at the data of these databases and see how we can understand both what data is available, but also the quality of the data that is available. So for doing that, we have different ways, different tools. So let's switch back to my local Power BI dashboard, and I will click on here, Power Query Editor that is opening on another window. Let me bring in here. Yeah, and here, as you can see, I have all my queries that points to all my production database tables. So I can see a glimpse of the different data that is available on my database. But I also have cool tools in the view section to understand a little bit more the quality of the data that I have. For example, I have a column distribution where I can see how distributed the data is. So how many distinct and unique values I have in my data set, which is important not only, but including for performance reasons. When you're having a high of cardinality, so when you're creating joins between two tables and these two tables have a lot of different unique values, you're creating more cardinality. And depending on what you want to do on the data and the number of time you need to join these two tables, you may hit some performance issues. So that's one thing interesting to get an understanding of that data. You also have a column quality option here, where you can see how valid is a column, is the data within a column. So you have valid, error, and empty. Error data is, for example, when you're importing a column that should be an int, an integer, or that should be a date, but the actual value that is stored within that column sometimes is not a date or is not an ID. And I have an example here with the call center history table, which is a table I haven't showed earlier, but basically lists every contact we had on the call center, whenever by chat, email, or phone. Where what you can see here is, for example, for the customer ID, I have few times 9 lines where I have an error on the data type. So it's not an integer, it's something else. So I should probably look at it. And I also have on the medium column another issue, which is, for example, 18 lines that have this medium column empty. So I can do a bunch of things to improve the quality depending on the current case and the business rules. I can remove the empty, I can replace the errors, for example, with a default value. So I can do a bunch of different things. And I can even double click here to get an overview of the value distribution. So how many, within that column, how many lines have a chat, phone, or email, just profiling on the top 1,000 rows or profiling on the entire data set. Here, my data set is quite small, so I can afford to have column distribution on the entire data set. Sometimes is not really possible. So as you can see, most of my value is around, medium is around phone, and I can start to have a sense of the data that is available to me. We can do a little bit more than just seeing that data and seeing the errors by using a cool feature of Power BI, which is Power BI Q&A. Power BI Q&A allows you to just type something like number of customers. Sorry, number of customers. And then Power BI is working, and boom, is giving me the query. Or I can do number of customers in the last 5 days. Sorry, I have a little issue with my keyboard. Let's say something else. Let's say how many orders are there in the last days. Here it's just a number, but you can have, for example, other type of graphics that can be shown from Q&A, like a number of products per category. Boom. And then you can see we have a lot of beanies and medians, but a few stocks available in our product catalog. So that's something interesting to understand data without having to create queries by hand. But sometimes Power BI Q&A is not savvy enough in your business, so you can actually do things like add synonyms and saying that customers is the same thing that account, or order is the same thing as sale. So you can enrich how Power BI is translating a phrase to an actual query. And that's something that is cool to explore data when you don't have any previous knowledge of that data. The other thing that is quite interesting is sometimes when you look at a graph, you don't really understand why you have a change. For example, here I have the amount of sales in dollars or in euros I've done, and you can see there is a surge and there is a decrease. What you can do is you right-click and click on Analyze, and then you have Explain the Decrease. And when you click on it, Power BI will actually crunch the data and try to understand. Sometimes this is not correct, but try to understand why you have such a difference. And in that case, between Q4 2022, between October and November, we went from 466 to 245, and that can get, these differences can get explained by the number of order per product category, where we can see that we had an increase in the sales of socks, but a huge decrease in scarves. And I don't know how the weather is in your countries, but in France, we had a pretty warm January, so that may explain why we have such a difference. So that's a few functions, few features you can have within Power BI to get a sense of the data that is available to you very quickly, very easily. And if you're a SQL developer, it's way easier to explore that data and to get some sense about the data by using a tool like Power BI instead of using Azure Data Studio or SQL Server Management Studio. So to recap that section, you can profile data and examine the structure of your data with all these data quality tools that are available to you. You can analyze the column distribution, as I said, which could be relevant for the future performance of your model and thus the future performance of your reports. The Q&A feature could be interesting to just start to get a sense of the data, and you can enrich that Q&A feature by adding things like synonyms to help you convert your business words, business lingo with the actual names within the database, either or name of the table or name of the columns. And last but not least, the Analyze feature could be interesting when you have something unusual in one of the graphs and you want to get a sense of what happened, what other things have changed in terms of data, but explain why there is a sudden decrease or increase in a specific dashboard. You can just right-click on it, Analyze, and you can get maybe not the right explanation. It depends on a lot of factors, but maybe some things to look after that could explain such a difference. Last part of our session is about securely connect to production databases without impacting production performance. And for that, we will get back to something I quickly introduced earlier on, which is the import mode. So as you can see here, I'm using Power BI that is connected on a local Power BI database. And that data is using the import mode, which means that each time I click on refresh, you may see here, I've imported some number of rows. What happens behind the scenes is Power BI will create a SQL query, and that will execute that SQL query on the production database. And if you're doing that while the database is under heavy load, well, your customers and Power BI will compete for the SQL power, and you might hurt the performance of your website by doing that. The good news with the import mode is when you're using the import mode, actually all the data is grabbed when you do a refresh. And now, for example, if I want to do some filters, so let's take, for example, the order date, and I will add a filter and say, yes, I want the last 5 days of data, and I apply that filter. As you've seen, the change, let me redo it. When I click on apply filter, the change is immediate. 3, 2, 1, boom. My data is filtered, my dashboard is filtered. It's happened so fast because all the data is actually stored within the Power BI file. It doesn't make a subsequent query to the SQL Server database. So if you're using import mode, you're taking a hit on the production database at the time of import, but the other queries you are doing are not impacting the performance. But there is a caveat to that is, first, as you can see, this is my main dashboard file, which is a little bit more than 1.5 megabytes. And the same report connected to a little bit bigger database on Azure is around 8.6 megabytes. The same Power BI, but connected in a different way, is a few kilobytes. And what's the secret of that last one? Let me show it here. Is direct query. So when you get data, let me click again on that, and you're selecting SQL Server connect. Then you can type localhost, and here you can select direct query. What direct query means? It means that each time you want to refresh the data, instead of, or changing the filter, for example, of something, instead of using a local copy of the data within the Power BI file or within the Power BI service, it will actually query the original data source, in that case, as a SQL Server, which in terms of performance could be a hit, but in some cases allows you to do things that are most real time, depending on what you're doing. So for example, in that Power BI, imagine you're a warehouse manager, and we have within the warehouse a huge screen that is showing in real time the new orders. So what I can do is I can do a directory connection to SQL Server. I've already done that. And then on the page, I can enable the page refresh. So automatically, every 15 seconds, I don't need to hit the refresh button. Every 15 seconds, Power BI will automatically make a new request to the SQL Server database. Here, I've crafted my request to limit the amount of data we got to only the last day. So we are not getting the entire table each time we're doing a refresh. We're just getting the last day worth of data. And let me start on another screen. Let me order a few things. So we should see these numbers, new orders and incoming walking points cranking up in real time. And I'm not using my hands. These numbers should update in a few seconds. Here I've done a refresh every 15 seconds. Yeah, here we go. The numbers have been updated, and we continue to update. To get that kind of like real-time dashboard with good performance, I'm using one of the feature of Power BI, which is query folding. So depending on how do you transform your model within Power BI can craft a SQL query in an efficient manner. In this case, I'm just getting the last day worth of data, and that's something that Power BI is doing for me. I don't have to craft a SQL query for doing that. Power BI is doing that for me. When you're doing such type of automatic refresh, you need to measure the performance to ensure that you are not creating a burden into the production database. But sometimes you need to have a good performance, almost real-time data, yet doing such analytical queries cannot be further optimized. And that's here where you can use Azure SQL to do interesting things. So let's switch over to my Azure Portal. So if you are new to Azure, basically one way of working on Azure subscription and Azure products is to go to the portal on portal.azure.com. And what I can do here is I've created a new Power BI server, which is here, which is located in West Europe. And I've done something that is something that is really easy to do. It's not really cheap, but it's easy to do to preserve, to get a high performance of your production database and still running analytical workloads on top of that without impacting performance. It's creating a read-only replica. So I'm been there on replicas, and I click here, create replica, and there I've just selected a new SQL Server, but in this case is hosted on the same region. So I've created a new server, and I will not create another replica. I've done it before. And as you can see, I have my primary database, which is the one that is used by my e-commerce website, which is online. And I have a geo replica, so another copy of that database that is replicated in real time, where in the same region, but is only readable, but is read only. And instead of using Power BI or connecting Power BI to that primary database that will hurt my e-commerce website performance, I'm instead using that geo replica. And the only thing I have to do that, if you go here, is let me redo that more paste. I click on File, Option and Settings, Data Source Settings, and then I can change the source and replace the source of my existing model to ensure I'm using the read replica and not the main database. And doing so, the replication doesn't occur a huge cost in the production database, but I can do whatever I want in terms of queries on my replica, and I can even scale my replica depending on my analytics needs. So that's one thing you can do with Azure. As you see, in a very few clicks, I create a replication, I create a replica, and I use that replica for my analytics workloads. But sometimes your database is too huge, or you want to do a more advanced, you have a more advanced analytics scenario, in which case you may want to use another Azure product, which is Azure Synapse. Azure Synapse is our offering for limitless analytics platform. So I've created a Synapse workspace, and I've created a Synapse pool, kind of an big data analytics cluster. But now I need to import my data from my SQL database to my Azure Synapse data warehouse. And again, it's very easy to do with Azure. I just went on my production server, my production database, and here, on my production server. No, I'm on my production server. I need to go on my production database. Yep, I should have named things differently. And here, so I'm on my SQL database, Power BI Everywhere Store, and I can go here and click on Azure Synapse link, enable Azure Synapse. You're selecting the workspace, enabling the prerequisite, enabling the link, and that's it. And I've done that already. So we should have some existing links showing here. And if I go on my Synapse environment, what you can see in Integrate is I've created a link connection between Azure SQL and my Synapse data warehouse. And by doing that, I will import from my production database all these different tables into their equivalent into my Power BI data warehouse. And by doing so, let me here. By doing so, I have all these tables that are stored into Azure Synapse. And when I'm doing any queries on top of the data, I'm querying Azure Synapse. Azure Synapse is a great way to get all your data from all your different systems within one place. You will have in the Power BI Everywhere series later in February a session about how to use Azure Synapse and Power BI to query data into data lake. So that's something that is interesting if you have data that are stored on other systems, you want to import it to a unique umbrella, and you have some data into SQL Server, then you can use Azure Synapse very, very easily to both gather data from SQL Synapse without having to install an ETL. I've just created a link, and all the data is being pumped into Synapse as we speak, and also use data from other data sources. And let's go back to the slides for a minute. So I've talked about query folding. That's one of the things that is really interesting for query performance. And basically, each time you want to import some data from SQL Server to Power BI, you need to think about how many lines, how many data I'm actually importing from my SQL Server to my Power BI instance, and try to limit that in different ways. Query folding is one of them. There is other techniques that allows you to reduce the amount of data you are getting from your SQL Server database to Power BI. One of them, I want to mention it because I think it's a cool one. It's the incremental update. For example, in my demos with the e-commerce website, if you have already imported yesterday's orders, there is a very limited chance that you may have missed orders a month before, 2 months before. So what you can do is to set up incremental loading, so you are only loading the delta's difference of new data created or modified between the last import and the current import. That's a great way to limit the amount of data you need to retrieve from your data source. And the query folding, as I said before, the query folding allows you to convey, to transport the filtering you are doing or some data manipulation you are doing on Power BI onto the original SQL query that is being made by Power BI to the original data source. We also seen Azure Synapse Analytics that allows you to easily create a data warehouse, and with Azure Synapse Link for SQL Server, you don't even have to create an ETL. Just a word of caution again around that. If you're using Azure Synapse Link within your data warehouse, you will probably have the same schema, the same model, but the one you have in your production database. And as I said before, you might want to change that to create a model within Azure Synapse that is best suited for analytical needs. But you can do it in 2 steps. You can have your original tables within Azure Synapse with the same schema that your production database, and then create within Azure Synapse in another database, for example, or another schema, that a table that are more tailored for your analytical workloads. We are almost already at the end of this session. I haven't seen the questions yet. I hope David is here to see if we have any other questions. But before we jump onto the question, you can start to type your question right away. I wanted to give you some follow-up things. The first thing is, as David and Usam said at the beginning, Power BI Everywhere is a series of events. So it's not just one session. The next session is this Wednesday about Power BI and Dataverse. So I encourage you to check out the series page and to register for the other session we will have through the month. If you want to continue your learning journeys, I recommend you 2 learning paths. The first one is Introduction to Data Analytics on Azure. You will have the link here, and again, you will have the entire link at the end of the session. There is also another interesting learning path, which is building data analytics solution using Azure Synapse SQL Serverless and Azure Synapse Serverless and SQL Pulse. And you have the link here, and we will again share the link. And I just want to thank you for watching this video, either live or in replay. You can find all the resources and later this week, all the code and the Power BI reports for these demos in that address. You will also find in that address the different modules and learning paths I've showed, and also the link to the Power BI Everywhere series if you want to check out the other episodes within the series. And now, let me jump to the question. So David, I see we have a first question about T-SQL views, right?
Yes. How do you retrieve information from parameters T SQL views?
Yeah. So sometimes as a data analyst, you don't have access to the full production database. Maybe you have a DBA that is, or a data architect that's organizing the structure of the production database, and you're only be given access to either views or even stored procedures, and you don't have access to the actual table within the database. That's not an issue. You can query these SQL views or even a stored procedure from Power BI. You might need to write a little bit of M language, M query to do that, but you can do that with Power BI.
Cool. I wanted to ask the data connecting the SQL. I saw that you did the Azure Synapse, the SQL, Power BI. Is it a must when you want to build scalable projects or scalable reports that you have to use the Azure SQL? Is it a must, or there are other ways to do that?
Yeah, so there are other ways to scale analytics workloads on top of a SQL database. As I said, the simplest one is simply to create a replica because it's a very low overhead. It's the same technology. You just need to change the connection string, and that's it. So it's very easy to do that, and you can address, as you've seen, you have 2 different server names, so you have 2 different endpoints. So it's very easy to limit the analytical workload onto your read replica. The issue with that is, as I said, when you're scaling your data analytics needs, factors between different reports, you will see that you will need the same kind of data and the same kind of data manipulation from a production schema to an analytical schema. And if you want to do that using the replicas, the only way to do it is to create these analytical tables, data into the primary database. And because you will be writing data, that means that each time you are running the SQL queries to populate these analytics tables, then you are getting a performance hit on your production database. So if you're getting to specifics to such a scale, this is where it's interesting to do Synapse, because within a Synapse workspace, you can create a new table that has the layout you want, and you can create pipelines, you can create Azure notebooks, you can create a ton of different things from getting from your production schema to your analytical schema without impacting the performance of your production database. And the other thing that is interesting with these Azure Synapse links for SQL is internally the let's go back here and here. The Synapse link, when you're creating a link between a Synapse workspace and a SQL database, it's very little overhead on your SQL production database. It's creating, if you're familiar with Cosmos DBs, it's kind of creating a change feed within your SQL database and using that change feed to power a kind of replication, at least the importing the ingestion of data between SQL Server and Azure Synapse. So it's this import, this data transfer is made very efficiently, and then within Synapse you have all the room you want to create your analytical tables and share them across your different Power BI reports.
Great, great, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Usam,
Hello. Yes, it was a very interesting session. Thank you, David and Christopher, for today's session. And again, this is part of a series, and there is a challenge. I think David would like to tell us more about the Cloud Skills Challenge that will be accompanying this four-part series.
yeah, so the classic challenge is so important for you to do because most of the things that you're going to be learning are part of the class skills challenge. The class skills challenge is running for a month, and it'll be good for you to take part in it, for you to learn it. It's just about Azure, Purview, Synapse, Azure SQL, and a little bit of Dataverse and Power BI. Those things, if you learn them, you'll be understanding Power BI or data analytic at scale or at enterprise scale, and it's going to be good for you to learn them. So there are different Microsoft Learn modules that we compile together from different products in for Microsoft, different Microsoft products. So we want you to take time to learn from the Cloud Skills Challenge, and it also comes with vouchers too. So please take time to learn with it. Thank you.
Exciting. So yeah, lots of learning resources, material, and the live sessions that we continue to have during the series are a chance for everyone who is interested in learning to ask our expert speakers about, the different challenges that they're facing, or, different things that they observe while they're learning. Again, on behalf of the community, I would like to thank you, David and Christopher, for coming in today and for sharing your experience with our community. And we're excited to continue this learning journey in the coming sessions. And for today, that was pretty much all. Make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribed also to the Cloud Skill Challenge so that you can benefit the most from today. And until we see you for the next one, stay safe and goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.